So first of all, I'd like to present a story to everyone here today regarding China's past as government. Now, after World War II, at approximately 1946, China underwent a civil war, a bloody civil war between the Chinese communists and the Chinese nationalists. This civil war resulted in the victory of the Chinese communists, and the result of this war was a communist government of China, was a communist government of China. Now, this communist government has been nefarious for violating human rights and for mismanaging all of its funds and resources. But let's look at China today. China today is one of the world's greatest economies, yet the question of human rights and exactly what it's been doing to people hasn't exactly been answered. Now, this brings me to today's topic, which is, how stable is China's economic growth? To which I answer, not stable at all, because of three main reasons surrounding the political state of China, the social state of China, and the economic state of China. Now, moving on to the political state of China, in an article in The Economist dated August 13th, 2011, China had recently purchased an aircraft carrier that would allow it to expand its power throughout the seas surrounding China, surrounding itself, thus allowing more military power throughout regions such as Taiwan or Vietnam or even Japan. Now, this has infuriated other countries such as Japan or Vietnam or Thailand, because this may be seen as an insult to these countries. This may be seen as a threat to these countries. Because China's decision to buy an aircraft carrier and to simply say, we are now going to be launching this aircraft carrier into the ocean in which we will patrol these oceans. This is a direct insult to these countries because it threatens them with military power. It threatens them with the presence of Chinese military throughout their oceans and even surrounding their countries. Now, China has long been considered a military power, and China's political decision to buy an aircraft carrier and to threaten these countries with this military power does not bode well for China's economic growth, because by threatening these countries, China effectively isolates itself from these countries, thus isolating itself from Eastern European trade. And by isolating itself from Eastern European trade, it thus hinders its ability to grow economically, which increases the variability of China's economic growth. And with this being said, now speaking of threats, allow me to speak about China's current social status, or social state. Now, throughout China, there have been various protests regarding the Chinese government and its policies towards people. Now, Chinese citizens have been critical about the Chinese government, but these criticisms have fallen upon deaf ears. The Chinese government has been nefarious for arresting journalists who dared to speak out against the Chinese government, and for abusing and torturing civil protesters who dared to act out against the Chinese government. Now, because of this social state, because of China's social state, this leads to a further variability of China's economic growth. Because within a country that is in social turmoil, within a country that does not have a sense of solidarity, how can we expect that country to have economic growth? We cannot expect a country to have economic growth when its people are basically up in arms and angry and critical of the government itself. And these criticisms of a government, these basic criticisms of government, bring me to my final point about the economic state of China, which is my most important point regarding this topic. Now, as according to an Economist article dated August 13th, 2011, China hosts one of the world's largest oil syndicates, which does business in Angola, Zimbabwe, and Guinea. Now, in these three countries, this syndicate operates by importing oil and various resources such as diamonds, iron, bauxite, and other rare minerals and materials. Now, this syndicate is one of the most profitable in China, if not throughout the world, simply because it does business in these countries when other businesses are unable to do business within these countries. Now, this is important to China's variability, as China's economic variability in terms of economic growth, because these three countries of Zimbabwe, of Guinea, and Angola are also in social turmoil, as in China. But this is in an economic sense because China's syndicate is doing major business within these countries. And these countries are China's major importers, as in most, if not all of the oil that comes into China comes from these three countries. So China's decision to do business within these countries, when they are in social turmoil, when they've gone through generations of civil war, when their current political systems consist of military juntas and militarily instated presidents, or so-called presidents, or even dictators, that you cannot expect China's economic state to remain constant. One cannot assume that China's economic state will remain constant. Now, this brings me back to the story. This brings me back to how China has fared regarding its situation with human rights. Because throughout these examples, we have seen that China has been violating human rights throughout the globe, throughout its own country, and has been threatening. And the attitude that China has taken clearly shows instability within China's government itself. It shows instability within China's economic situation itself. And because of those reasons, because of the political, social, and economic situations regarding China and its economic growth, this is why China's economic growth is unstable.